Live. All right. I think we're live. Yep. It appears that we are live. Hey, is anybody out there? Can you confirm if you're on Facebook or YouTube that you are hearing us? Come in, please. All right. Well, I believe we are. All right. Let me just do a quick check. Yes, Charlotte. Thank you. Charlotte's on Facebook. She hears us. Okay. We are live. I love you, Charlotte. Thank you. Okay. Well, we have Sterling and hello, Eric. Okay. Eric's on YouTube and he hears us. So we are live on YouTube and Facebook. And we continue to struggle with the technology, but I think we have it licked finally. Just say a word just here, Sterling, so I'm sure that we got your audio.
Hi, Meathead.
Okay. We were struggling with the audio. Well, let me introduce you folks to Sterling in case for some reason you don't know who he is. We're going to have an interesting conversation with. He is one of the most interesting people in the world of barbecue. Sterling owns Big Poppa Smokers, which is a massive barbecue supply store with a really nice selection of grills and smokers, all made in the USA. A range of rubs and sauces. I believe he carries my book, and a lot of stuff that you might need if you're going to be into barbecue and grilling. So go to bigpappasmokers.com to check out what he's got. But he also is the head chef for the Big Poppa Smokers competition team. And his competition team is one of the top teams in the country. He's won the American Royal World Series of Barbecue, which is like the big one. He's won, I think, something like 80 championships, grand championships, they're called, and about 140 different category competitions. And one of the other things that makes him really interesting is he's a musician. He's had several bands, but he owns a company called Ernie Ball. And if you're into music at all, if you know anything about guitars, Ernie Ball guitar strings are like the Rolls-Royce guitar strings, and that's his other company. And I mean, he supplies folks like Eric Clapton and just a host of musical luminaries, Keith Richards, Buddy Guy, Paul McCartney, with guitar strings. So he hangs out with some pretty cool people. So he's just got a wealth of experience in, and also he consults with some restaurant chains. So he's got a wealth of experience in cooking and also and in music. And I thought we'd have a conversation today about a number of things that interest both of us, and then we can take it from there. Sterling, we chatted earlier this week because I talk to Sterling regularly. He's kind of like a mentor in business matters. He's a very successful businessman. I call him up when I have a business problem to solve, and he's always got something that he wants to brainstorm about. What's on your mind tonight, Sterling? Is there? Well, I tell you what. Let's start off. We talked about hamburgers the other day.
No. Listen, I've been quiet now for 5 minutes.
Okay,
that's a record.
That's a record.
I'm going to start.
Okay, go.
Hot dogs meat. Casing or no?
Oh, casing.
Okay, we agree. Absolutely. What's the best way to cook a hot dog?
Well, all right. Let's talk about the different. For me, I like to grill them, but simmering, not boiling, simmering is the most popular. Don't ever boil them, and I like to put like a little X in the end so they flare open when I throw them on the grill, so they get really crispy.
so you get a little trumpet effect.
How
I
about
cook
you?
them in hot water. I cook them in hot water, and it depends on the hot dog. What I realize is a lot of them when you grill them, that there's something that changes in the, I don't know if it's the nitrate or something, but it changes the flavor. And so I just did boil 2 boar's head hot dogs with some pretzel buns before, just because I needed fortification before I went to battle with you.
Well, that's funny because my wife and I went to a play this afternoon, and it ran 3 damned hours. This topic I know you'd like. We saw the Lehman trilogy, which was about the Lehman brothers, and I know you're very interested in finance. And ran 3 hours. Fascinating play with a lot of flaws. But I'm looking at the clock on the way home as we're stuck in traffic, and I'm thinking we need to stop at a hot dog stand. So,
Oh, I like that. So we're both fortified with a nice tube steak.
yeah.
No, really. Listen, a corn dog is on my death row. If I ever do anything
Oh
to
God,
be killed, we're going to start with a corn dog.
I love them. Absolutely love them.
Okay, so you see, people are afraid to admit they like corn dogs, chili dogs.
Nah, I'm not a chili, especially with beans. I'm not a big chili dog fan. I like corn dogs, and I'll tell you, I'll eat a hot dog naked. I mean, the hot dog is naked.
Well, hold on. All right, keep going. Meathead, don't ever scare me like that again.
No, I'll eat a hot dog without anything on it. I do that in airports in particular when I'm on the fly. Just I mean, I like them with onion and mustard. No ketchup. I'm a Chicago boy, but I'll eat them with nothing on them. I just love the taste of them.
Agreed. So, I mean, I think it's really interesting because we're both into food so much, and some people have a tendency as they get more elevated into food to forget some of life's simple pleasures. Meathead,
So,
how do you like to cook your burger?
well, all right. I just got a griddle. I mean, I've always had a large cast iron griddle that I throw on top of my gas grill. And I've been cooking that way for years. But I've always just grilled my burgers. But I have a griddle now. I have a Pit Boss griddle. And I've been playing with that. And I've been fiddling with the Oklahoma onion burger. Are you familiar with that?
Yes? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
For the folks who aren't out there, let me tell you about Oklahoma onion burgers, and then you can talk about what you like best. These are a version of the smash burger. It's about a four ounce patty, and you make it about 3 inches in diameter, and you slap it on the griddle, and you take an onion and you shave it on a mandolin, which gives it very, very thin slices. And you make a big pile of onions on top. And then you take a thick spatula or a weight and you smash it as hard as you can so that it spreads out so it's almost thin enough to see through. And you want the edges in close contact with the surface because you're going to really brown the surface and you're going to get a great Maillard effect. And you're going to leave them there for a while until they get good and brown. And then you're going to flip them so that the onions are now down beneath the meat. And you're going to smash it some more. And you can put a slice of cheese on there. That's your classic Oklahoma onion burger. Although I don't care for cheese on my burgers. And a couple of pickle slices, whatever you want from there. And then a toasted bun, and you're up and running. And it's really a tasty burger with the onions smashed underneath the burger. And I've been playing with that lately. That's a lot of fun. What are you up to with
You,
your burger?
well, no, number one, I'm not a communist. I put cheese on mine. Okay, so Meathead, I'm not saying you're a communist. I'm just strongly implying it. So the
Thought
thing
we
with the
agreed on
Oklahoma onion
politics
burger,
tonight.
well, no, it was good to call you a communist. Nobody's done that, I'm sure, on this show. So Meathead, on the Oklahoma onion burger, there's a real 2 schools of thought, just like a brisket, where it's fat side up or fat side down. A lot of people believe the onion burger is onions down. It's a ball. It goes down, but The thing you mentioned that I really like is I watch these influencers cooking smash burgers, and I can tell her ambassadors, whatever you call them. I call them communists. No, just kidding. But when they get a griddle and they're supposed to be an expert, and they go and they put a half-pound burger down and they press on it about 5%, and they call it a smash burger.
No.
You need that burger to almost look like a screen door.
Yeah.
You want to be able to see the griddle before it. The whole deal is that caramelization.
Mm-hmm.
You get your juice from. I griddle my buns that are buttered. Now, if I'm grilling bread, I don't butter it first. Grilling, I butter after.
I'm
Okay,
exactly like you. If I'm grilling it,
griddle or
they go
pan.
down bare. They come off with nice black and brown and tan, and then I'll butter it.
It's a different flavor of burn or char or mired. So I really like that. I think it's really important, and you get your juice from your sauce, whether it's some sort of take on Thousand Island. Some of them have no pickles. Some of them have pickles, but that's how you get your moisture. But I really love them. You know, a
I have
cool
a
trick I
I
learned
have,
from
I have
Donnie
a secret
Bray.
sauce recipe that I like that I call burger glop, and it's on AmazingRibs.com. And it's your classic McDonald's type blend. It's mayonnaise, a little bit of mustard, a little bit of hot sauce, but it uses red style barbecue sauce instead of ketchup. And the
Wow,
proportions are pretty well balanced out in my recipe. If anybody wants to try it, it's really good. It's called Burger, and it's on AmazingRibs.com.
I've seen that site before.
um,
Meathead, we met a long time ago, and we were both getting started. You were a little bit ahead of me, but man, we had some good conversations back
I've
then.
always been ahead of you.
Hmm. Cognitively, I don't think so.
So,
But
all right, when you're grilling a burger, when you're doing a steakhouse burger, you know, a 6 to 8 ounce burger, what's your technique?
well, my technique number one is to make it a little bit concave because what I don't want is a football as a as a patty because when you start putting things on it, they just fall off. So I'm going for concave. I'll tell you the other trick I like to do is I believe a perfect grilled burger, you're protecting the bottom bun. And you're protecting it either with a solid piece of lettuce or two, or take your cheese, flip it upside down. I did those for Tabasco, and they're Tabasco butter upside down burgers, but the cheese is protecting the bottom bun from falling apart.
That's very smart. Very smart. You mentioned that to me the other day, and I hadn't thought of that. I'm, you know, when you hold a burger, you got four fingers on one side, one finger on the other side. So the four finger side is the side where I put all the toppings, and I will often serve it top side of the bun down since it's more substantial and it will hold more of the juices and such before disintegrating. What kind of bun do you use?
Potato, if I can get my favorite bun is Martin's potato bun out of Pennsylvania. That's the greatest smash burger bun. I have to order them by a case. I end up using two packages and then going down the street giving my neighbors the rest. But the Martin's potato bun is my favorite. Certain brioche, if the brioche is too sweet, I don't like it.
I like the
Okay,
brioche
so
ones.
yeah, but it just the brioche can be like 2 tablespoons of sugar in it too, and I don't want that. I want a very balanced brioche. Listen, I know we're going so deep into this, but this is the joy of cooking to me. I cook burgers a few ways. I sometimes like a big, beautiful smoke burger where you don't touch anything, and that's a big, thick patty. And I smoke that thing, and I smoke it to about 140. Generally, I cook my burgers higher because I'm worried about hamburger meat and how it's made. So I won't serve a medium rare burger to anybody,
Well,
even if they want it.
you want to know a trick?
Yeah.
And take go to your store and buy a chuck steak that looks to be roughly 80/20. If it's not, when next time you do a brisket or something like that, save some of the fat that you trim, throw it in the freezer, and make an 80/20 blend or even a 70/30 blend. Take that chuck steak and dunk it in boiling water for 20 seconds. You have now pasteurized the surface. The problem with burger meat, and the reason the government and you and I are concerned about cooking it to a safe temperature, is because often when cattle are slaughtered, the surface of the meat can become contaminated. The knife gets contaminated from the hide. Perhaps it cuts into the guts and gets some E. coli from the guts on the knife, on the table, on the floor, whatever. Contamination is very common on beef, but it's on the
Right.
surface. The bacteria are too
Understand.
they're too large to penetrate. They don't go down into the center, which is why when you cook a steak, you can cook it to medium rare and it's safe. To kill bacteria, you need to get it up to the 150, 155 range. And as soon as you throw a steak on the grill, boom, they're dead. But if you take a burger, you're now grinding it up. So any contamination that's on the surface is now on the interior as well. And that's why you really need to cook it to a high temperature. But if you
You know,
pasteurize it, then you can
yeah.
cook it to medium rare, and it's safe. The surface does turn a little gray, but it doesn't affect the flavor, doesn't affect the texture, and you can cook a medium rare burger just that way.
Okay, so the other thing I'll do sometimes in competitions, we save our Wagyu scraps and we chill them down good,
Hmm.
because it's easier to grind and it keeps its color. And we grind our own burgers, and they're phenomenal.
Hmm.
They're really phenomenal. Um,
Also, aged beef has a really great flavor. When you uh, there's a local restaurant that ages beef, and you trim off the outside layers, and some of the trim can be ground up and can be really tasty too. Now, do
cool.
you mix
So
anything into the burger meat?
what'd you say?
You mix anything into the burger meat?
No. Sometimes I use my cash cow, but generally, no. I want the meat. Look, so I'm going to go over it. I do a smash burger. I do a smoke burger. I do a Santa Maria burger, which is I would call semi-direct, where the juices of the meat come down, hit the coals, come back, and flavor the meat. Because I think there's direct, there's indirect, and there's semi-direct in how you cook any piece of meat. And the Santa Maria and the outdoor cooking uses the cool wind as kind of God's convection, and the drips come down and do it. So I don't smat. I keep that nice and thick, and I cook it beautifully. It doesn't really get grill marks. It gets just a beautiful, even caramelization. And then I do the standard gas grill, where it's about a minute and a half. Turn 90 degrees, flip, 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 done. I also, if they're really big, I'll get the sear I want on them, and then I'll put them on the shelf
You
and
know,
roast them.
you mentioned the Santa Maria burger.
Yeah.
I've been I've been tasting burgers at my favorite burger restaurants, and one of the things I've determined is that the very best burgers I've tasted out there are done that way. The drippings drop down, hit the coals, and come back up. And even some of them on gas grills, they hit the burners or the diffusers. So what I've been doing is I will now go to a 70-30 blend because I've tested this. If you take an 80-20 blend and you squish it, and everybody tells you don't squish your burgers, but if you want that flavor coming back up, you need to squish it a little bit. But on an 80-20 blend, it will get tough and it will get dry. But if you get a 70-30 blend, you can squish it, and those juices and the fat will drip down, vaporize back up, create a great flavor, and it remains juicy.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And then it's all the toppings you can do to a burger, which I always do. I think you can extend, and I did for BJ's Brewhouse. I did their some of their loaded burgers there, and it's fun, to put some pastrami on it too or something. Just mix it up.
Now, salt is an interesting. We talked about mixing things in. Professor Blonder and also Kenji Lopez Alt and I have done some interesting experiments. If you're going to mix a burger, it's important that you don't mix in the salt. If you mix in the salt, it's going to make it more compact and tougher. You do want to salt your burger, but you want to salt it on the surface and just before it goes on the cooker. So you
Hmm.
form your burger. If you want to mix in some garlic or black pepper or whatever you want, go ahead, or onion, but don't put salt into the ground meat. Just before you grill it, sprinkle the salt on the surface, and everything's okay.
I may do it a little different near the meat, but I don't put salt inside the meat. Never have.
No,
So that's good. So meat, you got a griddle. Are you cooking a lot on it?
I just got it about 2 weeks ago. As I said, I have had a Lodge cast iron griddle, which is about 18 inches long and 8 inches wide, and I've been cooking on that. Oh man, I love doing salmon on that and other things. But I just got a Pit Boss griddle, which has a ceramic coating. And I love my ceramic frying pans because they're like really slippery, much better than Teflon. And there's none of the problems you have with Teflon off gassing. And this is the only griddle right now that has a ceramic coating. And I went for it because I wanted something that would be really slippery and easy to clean up. The problem with these damn griddles, and they're really popular, is that they're such a pain to clean up. Things burn on them. They stick to them. And when I'm done cooking, I want to sit down. I want to eat dinner. I want to drink wine. I want to enjoy my company. After dinner, I get up. I might want to watch a movie on Netflix. I don't want to have to go back out and clean the griddle. And that just aggravates the heck out of me. On a gas grill or a charcoal grill, it's no big deal. After you're done cooking, you bring the food in and you eat it. You can let it sit until the next time you cook. So griddles, the cleanup is the big hassle. And this new ceramic Pit Boss is a lot of fun. And you know what the first thing I cooked on it was?
Sweet
Sweet
and sour pork.
Sweet bounty son of a yeah. And we have a running joke about my sweet and sour pork recipe. No,
Well, it's the only thing I've seen you cook.
sweetbreads. I cooked sweetbreads on them. I absolutely love sweet. They're not brains, ladies and gentlemen. They're really marvelous.
Glands.
Yeah. You slice them up, you dredge them in flour, throw them on there. They get really crispy on the outside and they're creamy on the inside. Just fantastic. I loved them, and it was very successful. I did some salmon last night, so I'm just getting into experimenting with this Pit Boss. Do you
Have you
said
played?
you
Have
have
you
a
speaking of cleanup?
you have a
Meathead,
stainless steel, don't you?
let me get a word in edgewise. Meathead, I cook. I like interviewing you though. I cook on a Twin Eagles teppanyaki. It's 30 inch and it's stainless steel. Okay, but I'll tell you a couple things. It's just like anything. Get the right tools for your griddle. There's a couple companies that I really like. One is Dexter, made in America. One is Lamson. And then one that's not made in America that's really attacked the griddle thing is Mercer, where you get them on Amazon and the extra heavy duty stuff has purple handles. I clean my griddle, it's so easy. And because I got a really good scraper. I mean, if I need a little oil to help me, I do that, but I don't have a problem with that. I did it first, okay? And the biggest objection I hear, like I was on a conference call yesterday with one of your favorite companies, and they all had griddles, and they all complained about the cleanup. And I said, do me a favor, get some good spatulas and scrapers. It'll be really helpful to you as far as cleaning it. But I do everything. I cook pasta on it. I think one thing you should do, Meathead, get some parchment paper. Okay.
Yeah.
I put I take some spray oil, believe it or not, usually avocado. I spray the griddle surface. I lay the parchment paper down. I either brush it with olive oil or spray it again. I have another thing, and then I put the halibut, especially salmon, any of that shrimp, put them down on the parchment paper, spray one that you're going to use to coat, and put weights on it. And you'll be amazed, and there's no cleanup.
You're cooking it on the parchment paper.
Absolutely. I have a video
And
that's going live
it
this
will
week.
brown and burn, won't it?
No, no, it's beautiful. It does everything parchment paper is supposed to. There's a video coming out this week of me. I did coconut panko shrimp and lobster on the griddle using the parchment paper, and then I did a pineapple fried rice to go with it.
I got to see
And
it.
so No, you'll see the video. I think I'm real proud of that recipe. And then I use Bang Bang sauce. Have you made Bang Bang sauce? Okay, Bang Bang sauce is fabulous. It's and you pick. There's three ingredients, and you pick your ingredients. It's sriracha. It's mayonnaise, either Kewpie, the Japanese, or your favorite domestic, and then Thai chili sauce. It's supposed to be about a third, third, third. Now, little Louie, my wife, doesn't like it spicy, so I'm about a little bit of sriracha and then the Thai chili sauce and the
I'll
mayonnaise.
have to look.
It's a wonderful dipping sauce. It's great for seafood. So Bang Bang sauce is one of those sauces that you just takes no skill and it's fabulous.
I make my own Thai chili sauce. In fact, the recipe is going to be in my next book. It's really easy to make and a lot of fun. And I use it on fried chicken. I use it on a lot of stuff.
Okay, Meathead, how much American food do you eat? American cuisine, seriously.
Well, I mean, with all due respect, there are an awful lot of Chinese people in this country. They're Americans. We promised not to talk politics, but there was a very sad story here in the Chicago area of a young boy who was recently murdered because of his religion. And the media kept calling him a Palestinian American, but he was born in the United States. He's an American citizen. He's not a Palestinian American, he's an American. This is a country that has many people of many origins, and I cook all of them. I cook American Indian. I cook Indian Indian.
You actually cook an American Indian? That's cannibalism.
I don't cook dog. I'll tell you that. So
Yeah,
but I
well,
love to experiment, and I love Asian flavors. I mean, don't you? I mean, Chinese food, Japanese food, Asian flavors are so attractive.
okay. Look at when I talk cuisines, I doesn't bring politics in. The American cuisine is steak, potatoes, stuff like that. The original American cuisine is Creole. Okay, even though that comes from African and stuff, that's Cajun stuff, but that is the American cuisine. But when you talk about, it's my least favorite food. It's the most boring, and it gives you the fewest opportunities to expand and to leverage and to add different things. So if I have a choice, and if I can only eat one area of food, geographic area, it's Southeast Asia. And
Yeah,
second
yeah.
would probably be, believe it or not, South American Mexico. Oh, I'm also a huge fan. I call it Mediterranean east of Greece. The Turkish stuff, the Moroccan stuff, all that I dearly love. And I'll tell you what most of those cuisines have in common, which are really important in today's economy, is that they weren't blessed with abundant proteins and the cost of it's so high, so they made their thing with vegetables and spices, and then they added protein as sort of a cherry on the sundae. It's
Hmm.
the same with whether when you're looking at a lot of the stuff you order at a Thai restaurant or something, it's the percentage of vegetables, and also it's not filet as much as it's other cuts. But I actually think that's really a neat thing to do on the griddle with American kind of food is reintroduce, because it's so expensive to eat. And
Well,
I know
you're always jerking me around about my sweet and sour pork on the grill. I mean, it's marvelous. Why do you always give me grief about that?
because you have to prove you're more than a one trick pony.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen listening out there, do post your questions. We'll yammer on for a few more minutes because there's a lot of great cooking tips that are buried in that bald head of his, and we'll try to extract some of them and touch upon some other controversies. But I will scroll to the top of this conversation and try to get to all your questions before we hang up on you. So don't be afraid to post questions. Um, we also have talked in the past, a favorite topic of ours. Tell me, and what do you think of the 3-2-1 method?
Well, listen, the 3-2-1 method only works at a very low temperature. It's not the way I like to teach. It's not the way I like to cook.
Explain if you
But and I'm
what method is.
Well, I don't use it, but I know there's people like Danielle DivaQ, who I respect like madly, and she really likes it. Listen, here's the deal with food. It's just like wine. If people ask me, so how's this food? I go, do you like it? She, yeah, I love it. I go, then it's great. When you were in the wine business, some people would drink a wine. They'd ask you if it's any good. Say, do you like it? Yeah, then it's good. It's good for you. So three,
Well,
two,
all right,
one.
I got to interject because not everybody out there knows what a 3-2-1 method is. Let me just explain. There's a technique for cooking ribs called the 3-2-1 method, where you rub the ribs up and you put them on the smoker, and they smoke at around 325, 225, 225 for 3 hours. Then you wrap them in foil, put them back on there for 2 hours. Then you'd pull them out, take the foil off, and put them back on for another hour. 3 hours, 2 hours in foil, 1 hour back out of the foil. 3-2-1, and it's very popular, very well known. And Sterling, you're dancing around because I have heard you use a string of four-letter words about the 3-2-1 method.
That, them, they, yes. Those are four-letter words, Meat, and they're just right on the top of my head. Look at Meathead. I think the problem is if you try and cook 3-2-1 at 275 degrees, which is probably, we argue about this, but that's really the average temperature in which stuff is cooked outside now. If you do 3-2-1 at 275, you have a pouch of fat, of meat and bones separated. So if you're going to do 3-2-1, I think you're about 210, the pit temp, and you probably got a better chance of having it. But like I said, here's the deal. It's too easy in what I call anti-social media to, I mean, if people are cooking and happy, that's great. You know, a lot of the things the influencers do bug the living daylights out of me because they're one person will cook it, 10 people will copy them. I mean, you must have seen 10,000 of the Big Mac tortilla griddle thing, and I don't know, after 100 have been done, I don't know why they do them again, but even big name cooks do. I think I there's pet peeves I have. I don't use mustard. That's not quite a pet peeve as a binder. A lot of people use mustard. I don't use mustard. I put my rub on enough time where I let the salt do its thing, gets shiny, create a dry brine or salt cap.
Let me
I
just
watch people.
interject here, if I may, just for folks who don't know exactly what he's saying. A lot of people, after as they're getting ready to cook the ribs, will put a slather or a layer of mustard on the ribs first and then the rub. And they believe the mustard is a flavorful binder that will help hold the rub on. And he's saying he doesn't do that. He just puts the rub. And I'm the same way. I may moisten my hands in the sink and pat the surface just to make sure the surface is damp so the rub will adhere. But if you want a mustard flavor, you're not going to get it by applying ballpark mustard to the surface. The parts per million of flavor in that mustard are just not. If you want mustard flavor, go get a can of Coleman's mustard and sprinkle that on. That'll light you up good, but it's not going to add any flavor. And it's not necessary.
Okay, this one will upset some of the people out there, but I don't believe that the concept of layering rubs, like 4 or 5 rubs on your ribs or your brisket, are a good thing because you're doing it usually to pick up one ingredient. But every rub you put on there has salt, has chili powder, has paprika, has garlic, has onions, and every time you put one of those rubs, you're just putting another dose of salt, pepper, and all those ingredients. And so I think you're over seasoning the meat. But then they'll say, well, put the spicy one on the end so the competition, the judge tastes it. We don't barbecue, we braise. We get some color on the meat and we put it in foil with liquid. That's braising. That's not barbecuing. But we call it smoking and barbecue in competition. So by the time you've put that brisket, for example, with 5 rubs on it, and you've got it in there for 2.5 hours before you go to foil, and you think you got a bark, you really have a thick sludge of rub. And so that's in a 16 or 17% humidity cooker. Then you put them in foil with liquid. That's not bark. And I challenge everyone, do me a favor, just taste that. Take your fingernail and scrape that and taste it before, and you're going to realize that you probably want to wipe the brisket down before you go there. But the way to get flavor in your brisket isn't what you do before you cook it. Now, injection part of it and all that, it's what you do afterwards. It's what you do on the cutting board. It's what your finishing rub is, because you're trying to get flavor into a slice about this thick. And the only flavor that you do before is maybe your injection, but you've got your rubs that are sitting on this 1/4 inch, 8 inch. So what it is make sure you get smoke on the brisket, which means don't put 3/8 of an inch of rub on it, because the smoke won't hit the meat. And smoke, I believe, is one of the most important ingredients when you're cooking barbecue. So that's what I think, and I think you got to think about getting your flavor once you slice it. It's on the cutting board. It's an au jus, it's your au jus, it's your finishing rub, it's some sauce. Okay, and that's how you get a piece of meat to pop.
So we're getting. I'd like to take a couple of the questions and comments, and there's this guy in here who says he loves chili dogs but no beans. Somebody named Fred Robles. Have you ever heard of Fred Robles?
I love Freddie, and Freddie knows that I would never serve him a chili dog with beans. Okay.
For
And
the
by the way,
listeners,
let me tell
Fred
you.
is one of
Let
the
me tell you about
really
Fred Robles.
great champion barbecue cooks out there.
1 second. 1 second. Fred Robles has the best knife skills of any cook I've been around.
Oh, nice.
And he thinks he's good looking. Kind of
Eh,
a tie with you, meat.
he needs to trim the beard. Rich Conley, who's a regular here, talks about polenta dogs. He likes to dip them into a polenta batter. That sounds good. It's like a corn dog.
Yeah, I think that's great. I didn't get the invite, but sounds great. What do you say we go to Rich's house and toss a few polenta dogs back?
TK is asking for how do you get max Maillard on a burger? 500 degrees or 325? What do you do to get the maximum Maillard?
Well, here's the problem with 500 degrees is that Maillard works to a point and then it becomes burned. Okay. So the thing you don't want to do is burn. That's a bad Maillard reaction. That's
Mm-hmm.
where you've crossed. So I think it's one thing that I teach and Tuffy teaches, and I actually learned from Tom Colicchio, who did Gramercy Tavern, is when you cook, use all of your senses. And one of the things with Maillard is look at your eyes, listen to it sizzle, and don't be afraid to just peek underneath it a little bit with your spatula. You're going to see when the color's right that's where you want it. And so I would say to be safe, it's 325, but it's really more a matter of you monitoring your cook with your eyes. And
Well, I've gone into a number of restaurants where they griddle, they do smash burgers or griddled burgers, and it seems like they prefer 375, 350, 325. 375 seems to be around the average for some of the better ones. But I think a general rule of thumb, whether we're talking about burgers or anything else, the thicker the meat,
the higher the
lower
heat.
the temperature to cook.
No,
Thinner the meat, the higher the temperature to cook.
right,
So if you've got a
right.
half-inch thick steak, you got to crank the heat in order to get a good dark surface and not overcook the center. If you use a low and slow heat, you're going to overcook the center before you brown the exterior. And for me, for smash burgers, I want them up there. I want the temperature up in the 400 to 500 range because I don't want to dry it out. I want to get max Maillard, flip it, get max Maillard, and keep a little bit, if I possibly can, a little bit of pink in the center. But I think
Not
the
you
answer
don't get
there
pink
is
on the center of it. You don't
the
get
answer,
pink on the center in a smash
it's
burger.
hard. It's hard. The answer there is you need to experiment to find out what you like best.
Well, no, I think I gave him good advice. You look at it, listen to it. You'll know. And push it as far as you can. But when you take a couple looks at it, if it's starting to burn, you pass the point of no return. as far as Meyer.
Hmm. I see Steve LaCourie, who's also been here before, talking about Zweigels. You must be from Rochester. A really great hot dog from up in Western New York. And Troy Belanger is asking, did we switch to Wednesday nights? Yes, Troy. We were competing with Thursday night football, and we decided we'd switch to Wednesday. So we are now the last Wednesday of every month, not the last Thursday. And
Meathead, how many of these have you done?
oh, years.
Fireside chats.
Yeah, I've done, I don't know, maybe 50. I don't know.
Okay, so would you refer to me as 51 from now on?
Say again.
Would you refer to me as 51
51,
as my
right?
nickname now? Because
Um,
in your pecking order, I'm number 51.
I don't do an interview every time. Usually, I go solo. I've probably only done 5 interviews.
So
Uh,
call me 5.
okay. Somebody from your office is online here, and she or he says the coconut shrimp and lobster fried rice recipe will be live on your YouTube channel tomorrow. So
Great.
people who are titillated by that. She's
I'm
all, I think she's saying 11 a.m. Pacific. Boy, we're getting um, okay. Rich. Um, yeah, Billy Bryans is saying 3, 2, 1's way too long. It's way too long in the foil. If you leave it 2 hours in the foil, I think it turns to mush, and now it really falls off the bone. I think great ribs should have the texture similar to a great steak. There's a little chew to them, and 3, 2, 1 I think turns it to mush. Um, yeah, Steve LaCourie is saying 2, 1, 1. I gotta look around. Forgive my head here. I'm looking around an obstruction. Rich is saying polenta dogs was a feature on diners and dives, whatever that show is. Again, I forget. On the Food Network. Oh, he's even posted the link. Foodnetwork.com recipes polenta corn dog. I'm gonna have to check that out myself. And
Meathead, I was
TK says thanks for the guitar picks and barbecue tips.
Oh, thank you, buddy. Grandbaby needs shoes. Meathead, I did a Food Network show before I was into competition barbecue, and it was pretty fun because it was Dweezil Zappa and Lisa Loeb, a singer and guitar player, were traveling the country, and they got a Food Network show where in different cities they would visit a cook, and they came to Palm Springs and visited me. I took them shopping and I took them to the greatest Mexican restaurant.
Cool.
But the interesting thing is, the Food Network said, okay, you're going to need to give us 6 recipes in advance. And we're gonna first of all find out if you ripped them off. And if you didn't, we're going to cook them on our test kitchen. And nobody ever makes it past. They turn in 6 and we may take 3. How many do you think I cooked, Meathead?
I give up. 6.
6.
Yeah.
You still can get them on the Food Network app and website.
Yeah, I was
What?
on there once myself, and I got to debunk beer can chicken, and that show got a lot of controversy. A lot of people still think beer can chicken is the best way in the world to cook chicken. And if you're not familiar with my issue with it, just go to AmazingRibs.com and look up beer can chicken, and I'll explain to you why it doesn't work the way you think it does. Um,
Well, what? But there's one thing I'll tell you. The thing about beer can chicken has nothing to do with the can or the beer. It's a vertical cook where the heat hits it at all sides,
mhm.
and that's what people like about it. But they
Well,
don't. They think it
what
has to do with
people like
liquid in the
about it is
can.
it looks like this little Buddha. He's cool looking. But the bottom line is the reason it tastes wonderful has nothing to do with the beer or the can.
I
It's
know
roast
that.
chicken. It's roast chicken. Roast chicken is always wonderful. I don't care how the hell you do it.
Okay. Any
Um,
other good questions there?
yeah, I have a question for you. When you and I have talked before, we've talked about um, butcher paper and foil. Now, for the background here, a lot of barbecue cooks will wrap their ribs in foil or butcher paper, or their brisket in particular, and one or the other at a point during the cook, to help capture moisture and steam it, and help tenderize in an enclosed environment. Do you tell us how you go about it? When do you wrap, and do you wrap with paper or foil?
Well,
Brisket.
number one, a couple things you said. Um, I use butcher paper. I use foil. Sometimes I don't do anything. But one of the things you're going to get into is that I'm going to talk about this, and some of the Texas cooks are going to get mad at me. Some of the other cooks that mirror things, but the things that I find amusing is that competition guys aren't supposed to be real barbecuers because we do things to the meat and stuff. And Texas is the only barbecuer, but most Texas restaurants cook the brisket, wrap it in paper, and then put it in a computer controlled Altosham for 6 to 12 hours. So not everybody is really as pure and as honest there. What bothers me with butcher paper is that it's not necessarily always food safe. And I really don't like it when I watch people after they're through take it and squeeze the tallow out and thinking they're doing something. You're not getting pure tallow. You're getting whatever else, a filler or binder that's in that paper is coming out. And then even if you have soy ink, if it's a printed one, you're putting that in your brisket. I don't think that's wise. So I don't do that.
You
Okay.
mentioned Altoshams, and let me just explain for people who Altoshams are really interesting tools, and a lot of restaurants use them now, because they have to cook a large quantity of meat well in advance of service. It takes, it's not like you go in a restaurant, order a steak, they grab the steak, throw it on the grill or the griddle, and it's done in 15 minutes. If you're ordering ribs or brisket, they start the briskets at 11 o'clock at night to have them ready at 11 o'clock in the morning for lunch. Um, so they have a device in a lot of restaurants now, and some competition cooks are starting to move to it. It's called an Alto Sham. It's a brand, but basically it's a box that is temperature controlled and humidity controlled. So
Okay,
you
but number one, CVAPs are better for that because they're more humidity, but you can't do that in competition barbecue because it's it's an electric, it's a heat source that doesn't work. What
okay?
they're done to get the tenderness and the moisture they want. But I'll tell you what I do, which is and I got this from Chud's. A lot of people don't give credit where credit's due, but Chud did the foil boat. I don't know who's first in anything. Okay, I only talk about what I see first. But a really interesting thing instead of Altasham, what they do is these turkey roasters, like the Hamilton Beach one, because you can set it for 150 or 170. And instead of the old days putting a towel around it, putting it in a cooler, you put in this 150 to 170 degree thermostatically controlled thing. And it is a much better brisket. There's no question about it. Okay, you're right, Paul, about Dick Butkus. I'm now number 5. Who's that?
I don't know. Um, I didn't know I could do that, by the way. I didn't know I could put comments on the screen. Um, okay. Um, Billy Bryan wants to know what I'm drinking. Actually, this is interesting. Um, it's a Montepulciano, which is an Italian wine, made at a little winery here in Illinois, Linfred. Not known for wine, Illinois, but Linfred has this lovely little Napa-like wine
Oh,
in the
would you
summer.
do me a favor? Hold that bottle up again. There's not much left, meat.
No, no, I started it yesterday, not today.
Yeah. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah. Hey, so meat, ask me about how much content I cook.
How much content you cook?
Yeah. That's what I'm doing more than competing. I'm cooking
Oh, okay.
content.
You
It's
mean
on
how
your
much stuff
site.
do you cook for content?
You,
Yeah.
you have you have Big Papa a corner on your site now, Amazing Ribs.
Yes.
And
You
I
have
have
given us a recipe for carnitas and your peanut butter and jelly ribs. You want to tell us
right.
about your peanut butter and jelly
No,
ribs?
no, I want to tell you that right now, what I'm doing, meat, I cook so much. We have 5 editors, and when you see me cook, and you can tell, part of it is being a little bit funky because that's my personality. But when you see me cook, a chance or it's the first time I ever cooked it. There's no practice cook. That's it. I film myself. I've developed a tripod system where I can have 3 Sony cameras. One does vertical, one does close, and one does front. We currently have 100 videos backed up of recipes, and they're original. So I try to miss the trends. I try and cook around it. But listen, I love cooking. I always have. Cooking is when you want to please people. Cooking is a creative outlet. I mean, I designed guitars all my life. I've designed a lot of things. The idea to be able to create something out of ingredients randomly, or in the garage, or Iron Chef, which I've done with James Beard Chefs, um, is really fun and really rewarding to me. And if I can do something that inspires somebody else to cook a little bit more, that makes me feel really good. It makes me really happy.
We share that love. I get emails every single day saying how much they like a recipe, or how learning to grill or smoke from AmazingRibs.com has changed their life. I've had guys say, I got laid last night because of you. I mean, it's just, it's very gratifying, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a very wonderful creative activity. Um,
Meathead, I've never gotten frisky connected to anything you do.
well, I I
What
can't
What's your
imagine
favorite
anybody
Wagyu steak,
out there.
Meathead? Let's talk about Wagyu because we agree on Wagyu.
Yeah, let's talk about Wagyu. How do you like Wagyu burgers?
I like Wagyu burgers, but I don't. When I watch people buy Wagyu and do smash burgers with them, it's sort of a waste of money. Okay. Um, what I don't like, I like Wagyu briskets. I've gotten used to the flavor. It's a real good way. That's what we cook in competition. I really don't like Wagyu tri-tip at all. And especially the elevated like golds and stuff. I don't like Wagyu ribeyes. I don't like Wagyu fillets. A fillet does not need to be marbled like that. Was that you doing that? Rimpy Jr.?
I've figured out I got sound effects I can play.
I like that. But, I like an upper choice tenderloin.
Well,
And if,
USDA prime, I prefer to Wagyu. I
me
think
too.
most Wagyu, and I've had real Japanese Kobe. It's just too fatty. It's like eating a stick of butter. Um, it's really interesting. And if you've not had a Wagyu ribeye, you have to have one to add it to your memory bank of great flavors. It's marvelous. It's really hard to eat a complete Wagyu
Yeah.
ribeye.
I,
It's so
I
rich.
like Wagyu New I like Wagyu New Yorks. And I'll tell you another thing. Here's where you buy Wagyu. Some of the cuts that you read about, even culotte, which is the same as picanha, or similar. And then flat iron, hanger steak, terrace majors, Denver. Those different cuts are cheaper. And still, if you buy it in Wagyu, it's cheaper than prime many times. So if you're going to do Wagyu, go to the secondary cuts of a normal prime cow. Buy those. The Wagyu will compensate for whatever you lose
Well,
in the
the only
translation.
Wagyu I buy now is flank. Now, I
Oh
think
yeah,
flank steak is just a marvelous steak. It has so much
sweet and
flavor.
sour flank steak.
It's so easy to cook, a hot flame, and it's just marvelous to cook. But Wagyu flank steak has a lot more marbling and therefore is juicier and more tender. Not outlandishly expensive. And that has become a staple around here. I have knocked so many friends and neighbors out of their chairs with my Wagyu flank steaks.
Yeah, I really like flat iron, but I like it when the butcher splits it in half for me. That little thick silver screen between the two is a real pain in the
Yeah,
rump.
yeah, it has this spine of very thick.
Kryptonite.
Yeah, it's terrible stuff. But the rest of them, the meat is marvelous. But I'm not a Wagyu burger fan. I mean, one of the reasons you want Wagyu is because it's so tender and because it's fatty. And you can get whatever degree of fattiness you want in the burger by just blending it. You know, you can ask the butcher for 80/20 or 70/30, or you can do it yourself. Um, and so you don't need to spend that money on Wagyu. And the reason it's so tender, but burger is ground. I mean, it's pre-chewed, so it doesn't matter how tender the Wagyu is. So I don't waste money on Wagyu burgers or hot dogs or
Come
anything.
on, meathead. You don't buy meat. You're a celebrity.
Oh, I buy meat. Believe me, I buy meat. You don't want my meat bill.
Yeah,
So
I'm
you
sponsored by
sell
Tyson and Chairman's Reserve, and I love it. But I still have to fill in because I don't quite get enough because I cook so much.
you sell
And meathead,
grills and
I'm doing
smokers.
yes.
You've got a great collection. I know I'm about to ask you what's your favorite child, but do you have a couple of favorite grills and smokers that you really, really like that you use a lot of?
Okay. Number one in the pellet grills, and I think I introduced you to them. I love Mac grills.
Yes, you
I
introduced.
think Bob and Carrie Tucker have evolved and have been so committed to making the best product. They've made it almost unsaleable because of the price now, but it is the ultimate in pellet grills. It gets hot enough for me. I love that. I love Santa Maria grills. So in the backyard, I'm at the beach now, and you know, somebody lets me stay in their houses. I don't have multiple houses. Okay, maybe I do. So anyway, I'm limited by space at the beach. I've got a stainless steel Big Papa drum. If you had to tell me I could only have one cooker, it would be a Weber kettle or a drum. I think
Really?
Weber kettle, I can't tell you how many people that got their Traeger, went through it, and they said, okay, what's next? I'm ready for next. I said, a Weber kettle, and they think I'm joking. I mean, a Weber kettle is the greatest, and if you can cook on a Weber kettle, you can cook on
You
anything.
and I think I'm correct in saying this. You do not sell them.
No,
There you go.
no.
Um, my only complaint about the Weber kettle is I want to be able to raise and lower the charcoal bed, and you can't do that. The next best thing is the slow and sear, which is an insert into the Weber kettle, which allows you to move the meat directly over charcoal right below the surface. That's
I,
a
I
great.
have, I
You have
have,
a
I
Weber.
have, I have six of those.
You do really great
Yeah.
invention.
I like it. I used to sell them. It didn't work out. I still like Dave. I think he's got a great product. You got to understand, American made grills are really hard to sell. I mean, I was doing a couple million a year in American grills. I'm gonna be lucky if I do 100,000. The market's gone, and the market's gone especially for smokers. People aren't smoking. They're griddling. They're cooking on gas grills. They're watching live fire. They're watching guys like Al Fragoni, and I did a big cook on a Santa Maria. They watch that, but I think it still scares a lot of people. But smoker sales, I mean, it's really hard to sell. I mean, the big boxes are struggling with their inventory. Um, so that part of it isn't great. But I just right now, what I want to do, if I sell smokers, I sell smokers. I want to sell my rub, show people how to use it. I want to empower people to get a little better at what they're doing and feel more comfortable about cooking outside. And I want to use the creative opportunity for me. I'm not. I mean, I designed my last guitar a year ago. Um, and my son Brian and my son Scott are doing that. They're doing a real good job. I'm probably not going to do a lot of it, but I still have this creative Jones, I got to get done. So that's what I do.
You know, I mentioned earlier that you're one of the most interesting men in the world of barbecue because of all your culinary skills, your business skills, your competition skills. I forgot to mention your charitable activities. You're very involved with several compassionate activities. You want to say a word or two about them?
Well, the hard part about the only reason why I like to talk about it is because it helps me raise money for other people. But I have three sons, and I think one of them, Casey Ball, might even be online here. Um,
Maybe he's the
if you
one who's.
look, I
Uh,
no,
uh,
that was Amy that did the thing. But Casey Ball was born with bad kidneys, and he had 8 operations by the time he was 6, including getting my right kidney. Um, it was a really tough time. And when I realized we were at UCLA, and it was the number one kidney facility in the world transplant, and I said to them, "Well, you get all the money from the government. You don't need us." And he goes, "No, we get 6% of our money from government." I said, "So how do you fund this thing?" They go, "National Institute of Health, drug company grants, and then outside donations." I'm sorry, it's not a short answer, Meat. And I said, "Well, how much did you get in outside donations?" They said, 2,500. And I said, "Well, I can't do anything, but I'll promise as long as I live to raise money for you." So I think we've given UCLA $10 million so far, um, and endowed the chair there, endowed the lab, and created a multidisciplinary transplant center where it gets kidneys and livers talking together instead of competing for research dollars. See, the problem is each one of these organs, it's competition with the kidney. So I tried to make it so it wasn't. Then we went to Boston Children's, where we've endowed the chair there, which is the number one facility in the world. And we created the Casey Lee Ball Multidisciplinary Transplant Center. And we also started the National Hub and Spoke Research Center, which, to give you an idea, the hub is Boston Children's. Each one of these schools that is accelerated in nephrology has a certain specialty, whether it's dialysis or steroids or anti-rejection. So what Boston Children does through the Casey Lee Ball grant that I helped create is we collaborate with those schools. They bring their research into us, and then we put it together into a model that utilizes the expertise and abilities of 9 to 10 other schools. But we've also endowed that we've also supported research at Seattle Children's, Texas Children's, University of Alabama, Birmingham, Cincinnati Children. So the Casey Lee Ball Foundation is one of the largest private kidney foundations in the world. It's all funded by my family and my friends. And I've
you
had a
also run.
series of
You also run fundraisers.
what?
You also run fundraisers for them, don't you? Some of
Yeah,
your.
I have. I had the number one pro am in golf in the world. It's just I didn't allow the media. There was no price and there was no invitation. People would have to write me a check. And if there are people that didn't have a lot of means but really loved Casey and wanted to do something and wrote a check for 200, that's fine. But I had certain people write me checks for 200,000. Okay, so we do with 18 teams, and I had everybody from George Clooney to Wayne Gretzky to Bill Murray, you name it. It was because it was a private A-list tournament. Jack Nicholson never missed it. Neil Young, so that was great. And then I was in the golf business for a while, managing a kid named Anthony Kim, and for the last 6 years, I did it as a PGA Pro Am after the Bob Hope, and then the King of the Smokers. I raised about $2 million through King of the Smokers, which I got no support from KCBS. They fought me like mad. And I think I raised more money than they have in a long time. But that's it. I mean, look, I wouldn't talk about it except for, I mean, there's 50 terminal kidney diseases that affect kids. A treatment's a transplant, a transplant's a treatment, not a cure. Casey's on his second transplant doing wonderfully. Okay. Um, I can't feel any better about how Casey's doing, but there's battle scars from the journey he was on and the family was on. Anybody who's had a sick child, I think, can understand. And sometimes I can tell by looking at somebody there's a wound that only somebody who's been wounded can see.
Um, that's just incredible.
I'm sorry if I talk. I'm sorry if
No,
I
no,
talk too
no, no.
much about that.
It's not one of the thing aspects of your life and career that I admire. Very, very nice.
Well, thank you.
So back to barbecue.
Yeah.
I see that my right hand man, Clint Cantwell, who is now the president of AmazingRibs.com, I have turned over the reins of day-to-day operation to Clint. He was just out in Vegas for the opening weekend of the Sphere.
Sphere.
Went to
Yeah.
see you too. Went to the Sphere. Was there like the second night it was open, and he went to a Japanese restaurant, and he's saying he ate A5. A5 is a grade of Wagyu that very high fat content, and he says his arteries are still hating him. Um, um, we have Paul Rutz has been asks, what's a good recipe or technique for pork belly, not bacon, but as an entree or something else? You have a good idea of what to do with a good pork belly?
Well, there's porchetta, which I'm sure you got a great recipe on.
Yes.
Um,
We want to
I
know
don't.
what porchetta is and how to do it.
No, you can. You've done a pretty good job so far.
Porchetta, all right. Pork belly, you usually get in around 3 pound slabs. You can roll it up, or actually, what you do is skin side down. A lot of herbs, if you can, fresh herbs. A lot of rosemary in particular. It's an Italian recipe. They use a lot of rosemary. If it's a very big slab, you can take a piece of tenderloin and lay it in there. But you roll it up, and then you moisten the outside and salt it, and you cook it. Rotisserie is good, or just cook it indirect. But the skin gets really crunchy and crispy, and you slice it. In Italy, they like to make sandwiches out of it. It's just marvelous stuff. That's a good
Well,
technique.
what I don't cook meathead is pork belly burn ends. I don't have a problem with it, but it's been beat to death.
Hmm.
Okay, it. I mean, come on, cook something else.
Well,
I like I
I
like
think pork belly burgers, they're a lot of fun. You can also make um, uh, you
me.
can take
He didn't ask you.
oh I
These
like
are
to
like
make,
our normal conversation. Look,
yeah,
I think it's kind of fun to cook them like ribs.
I like to make them like like to make banh mi out of them. I like to
Mm-hmm.
cut them into
Oh yeah,
cubes, smoke them, and then put them on a really good crusty baguette with some pickled onions and some other things. So banh mi,
meathead.
I think there's a good
Meathead,
recipe on our website for pork belly banh mi sandwiches. Really
and I
tasty.
have one. I have one too. But I'll also tell you something I did make, which brings us back to the beginning of the show. Pork belly corn dogs. I cooked
So
the
you take
corn.
a strip,
I
you dunk it,
I
and
took the strips, got it nice and crispy and nice and cool, and cooked through. Dipped it in the batter, fried it. You want to talk about Nirvana on a stick?
oh my goodness!
Listen, and that's my. I didn't steal that. That's mine, and we have a video on it if you want to see it. Look at
Wow.
cooking with Big Papa.
For
What you're
for
looking like you don't like that idea.
oh, I do. Uh, I'm just trying to let it sink in here. That's
Have you said I do in the last 50 years? Hey, Mead, I got another question. We're in similar things. You're significantly older than me. I'm gonna
thanks.
yeah, I'm gonna be 69 years old in January.
Well, I'm 5 years older.
Significantly, like I said. So a couple things we've got. You've got Clint, who's president. My son Brian is a partner and CEO. Scotty's vice president. And the question I got for the last few years is, hey, did you see Secession last night? I said, I lived it with my father and now living with my kids. I'd rather watch a car crash than a story about an old man giving up and transferring power.
We
It's
just saw
it's
the
difficult.
we just saw the Tony Award winning play Lehman Brothers trilogy today. I went
I
this
know,
afternoon.
Meathead, you already told us that.
Yes, and it's all about these three immigrants and how they built this massive financial empire. And it starts in the 1840s and comes right on up through 2008, the market crash, and when Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. but it's
Yeah, except for, you know what Lehman Brothers going bankrupt did, Meathead? It dispelled a theory that we were operating under forever called too big to fail. And
Mhm.
Lehman Brothers was always considered, all those were, General Motors was considered too big to fail. They all failed. There's no such thing as too big to fail,
Right.
especially in today's world, because people are a lot less brand loyal. They're there's just a lot of ways you can fail. So you gotta earn that customer every day, and that's what we do at Ernie Ball. I mean, we
Mhm.
made 300,000 guitar strings today. Okay, sold them to 120 countries. And the only reason why we can keep growing is that we have the trust of our customers and the confidence when they buy. And we are absolutely committed to not resting on our brand or our accomplishments. And sometimes with those bigger and older companies, that's what they do. Ernie Ball is a third generation company. My father, me, and my son Scotty and Brian. Okay, the chances of success for second generation is about 60%. Third generation is about 28%. And we're coming off two of our biggest years, in fact, our biggest years ever. And that's great leadership and the right kind of succession. Okay, hombre, cash cow rub for win on the brisket. Thank you. Cash cow is such a different rub because it's hard to describe, but it's the first rub that had that rendered beef fat in it and rendered beef stock. Okay, because it was to help with some of the
This
flavor.
is, I should explain. A cash cow is a brand of rub that Big Poppa Smokers sells and makes. They make it and sell it.
Created. I like to be called the creator. Yeah, so cash cow is great. And if you look at our comp steak and brisket, which is all I use on brisket in competition, it's basically double secret with a little more black pepper. I take the lemon, which is the citrus, out of the double secret because the citric acid impedes the smoke ring. And then I put about a 25 to 30% of cash cow. So it's all blended. It's blended by weight. And I want to come back. If you want to mix rubs, don't layer them. Figure out what you want, weigh each one, come up with a formula, and then it's one rub you're putting on that you have very consistently know what it's going to taste like.
Wow. Um, uh, just a wealth of knowledge.
Am
Well,
I giving you a headache?
no, yeah, I'm looking
Do
at
you
the
need some
clock.
more wine? Can
I
I
ran,
send you another bottle?
I ran out.
You know, I quit drinking 17 years ago. And
I
it
quit
wasn't a
drinking
Betty Ford thing.
17 seconds ago.
I know, I saw. Believe me, non drinkers count. We're drink counters. So, no, I walked out one morning, told my wife, hey, I think I'm through drinking. And she spit her tea on the counter laughing. My problem was I was 50 something years old and I realized that the gas gauge was probably blinking. And so I did it for a productivity deal. That's why I did it. So it just works better for me. I think it
So
helps me in competition.
I may,
Guys who get
I
butt
may,
faced generally don't win as much.
I may regret this question, but do you have a pet peeve you want to talk about?
No,
God, no, man. How about something related to competitions? What's wrong with KCBS?
you don't have enough time. KCBS is a definition of insanity to me. It's doing the same thing and expecting a different result, which is such a horrible cliche, but I can't think anything more appropriate. We're trying to sell a non public facing event as a public facing event. And that's where I'll leave it. I've
When you
met too
say a
many great
non-public
people.
facing event as a public, for those of you who've never been to a Kansas City Barbecue Society competition, they promote them, but when you go, there's nothing for you to eat. There's nothing for you to
Right.
see or taste. The competition cooks are all very busy. They don't have time to talk to you. Maybe they'll talk to you in a little bit of downtime. They don't have anything for you to taste. It's first of all the health codes. They're not there to vend. They're not allowed to serve samples to the public. Walking down, up and down, and smelling the air is fantastic. Oh my God, it smells so good. Um, uh, they
Okay,
may have
meathead. People go to a contest to taste good barbecue. They go to contest to learn something. I did the King of the Smokers, which hasn't happened for years, but Fred
Mhm.
was there and different people. And what I did was I protected the teams while they're cooking. I opened the doors an hour before, and I had a minimum of 9 classes that were free. And I told Darren, I told Travis, I told Tuffy, Johnny, everybody, look, you're coming to this contest. I'm going to put you up in a 5-star resort, feed you. But the minute that public shows up, you are going to um, you're going to interact with them and you're going to share with them. Our barbecue, we don't have places for them to sit generally. There's no water. You don't see anything. Can you imagine going to a car show, the auto show, and they have the covers on the car? That's what we do at Competition Barbecue, and we got to figure out a model that's soft, but change is almost impossible. I mean, KCBS fought me so much on the King of the Smoker. Um, it was ridiculous. I had a contest called the Guinea Pig, which was $450, all meat supplied, including Wagyu, $10,700 prize pool, and I got fought on that, so I stopped doing that too. I'm
He's
going to promote more. I'm going to promote more unique contests, but I'm going to have to wait for a time where I feel more comfortable with what's going on in Competition Barbecue. The
I'm
team counts are down, contests are down. Okay. Last contest I cooked, and there's been 6 weeks between contests. There were 19 teams when there should have been 40. It's really hard.
um, back to pork belly, if we may. I'm looking at a comment from Rich Conley, who is a regular here, and good to see you again, Rich. I'm going to read this because he's got a technique for pork belly he wants to share. I've done a couple of 100 pounds of belly. I tried curing a couple of recipes, but it always turns out that the lean was super tough.
Yeah.
I use skin off, rub, smoke for 5 hours or so at 225, then wrap it and go another 2 or 3 hours. Cool overnight, then I cube it, spear it with a long toothpick, and coat it on all sides with more rub. Then all you need to do is warm them up and sauce them if you wish. Result is something you can slice for bacon or cube for burnt ends. Lean is tender, the rest is unctuous. That's a really nice technique. I like that. I think you've got something good going there, Rich. And
I
the
do, but
question really
I want Meathead to spell Meathead. Don't look. I want you to spell unctuous.
Unctuous, unctuous. It's a term I use in wine descriptions all the time. Unctuous. It's a good word. Meaning
It is
very rich, concentrated, thick. It's an excellent word. Unctuous.
kind of like your middle name,
Well, I mean,
Craig
one might
Meathead
say
Unctuous.
that you are a bit unctuous sometimes.
Yes, well, I like that. So, any other questions from our friends out there?
No, I don't see any more questions, and we're closing in on 90 minutes, and I like to cap it at 60, and 90 would be a good place to put a lid on it. So if you've got a question or two for Big Poppa, Sterling Ball, uh, hit us with them now and see
Any
what.
guitar questions?
Oh, there you go. Somebody put this comment in here, and I'm guessing it's a guitar comment. Nickel round wound. Is that does that describe one of your guitars?
Yes. That's our guitar strings. That's our slinky bass strings too. It's awesome. My dad created those in 1962.
TKS. We can veer off onto that. Your dad was early ball.
Right.
Very famous. He created a lot of.
The cat he created the category of which we have probably 55 significant competitors. We're still, especially in the electric guitar, we're number one and have been for a long time. I took it over when I was 14.
Wow.
I mean, excuse me. No, I took it over when I was 21 when we had 14 employees. Okay. My dad says you have a year. If it stays the same or goes down, you're fired. And I never looked back. Yes, we had a storefront in California. We had one on Ventura Boulevard. We had one in Canoga Park. My dad moved in 1967. He sold them to his brother-in-laws who didn't pay for them and went broke. But yeah, in the San Fernando Valley in the late '60s,
And you
and then
sell
we moved
online
to
too.
Newport. Well, yeah, but Ernie Ball, we became wholesale only in 1967. It's been a long time,
Oh,
but
I
that's
didn't know that.
also when the British invasion hit and Cream came over, and Hendrix was coming back from, and all these people. There was a magazine that came out, Guitar Player Magazine, and one of the only questions they could ask him is, "What strings do you use?" And Jimi Hendrix, all those guys, still to this day, Eric Clapton's played our strings for 60 years. So it's
Um,
pretty fun.
Back to barbecue. Bobby Granatire is asking, what do you think about pellet cookers?
I love pellet cookers. Let me tell you what, I love most cookers. I like gas grills. Everything has its place. Okay. And the other thing, it comes back to the thing I said with meat. If you're turning a product out that your family likes and you like and your friends like, it's a great cooker for you. And I'm not lying. I'm not being patronizing. I don't have a snob thing there. I believe that as long as you're outside cooking, hopefully using our rubs, that that it's all good. It's just, to me, I like to say cooking outside is kind of like getting to go off the grid for a while.
Do you
Nobody
sell,
bugs you when you're cooking.
do you sell only your rubs or other companies?
Oh, I sell significant amounts of rubs. I sell probably 30 different rubs.
You
We're
don't.
we're trimming it down because they're not.
You happen to carry this one?
No, Jesus, that guy's ugly. Oh, sorry, meat, it's you. No, no, nobody's trying to sell it to me. I think you have an exclusive with some guy in Nicaragua or something.
No.
Meat, how do you like your co-packer?
Oh, don't go. Gary Hammond says, I remember the Ernie Bell Super Slinkies.
Yeah, it's the number one seller. It's a pink pack, bright pink. The art was done by a guy named Roland Fargo Crump, who was one of Disney's first art directors. He did It's a Small World, huge cult artist now. His stuff goes for fortunes, and he went to junior high and high with my dad and did the labels that we're still famous for.
All righty, I think we can wind up shortly here. Any anything that we haven't covered, something that's on your mind that you really want to get off your chest, that you really want to talk about, that you think that folks need to hear about?
No, I can see our participants are dropping like layman's stock in 2008. I don't want to be the last one to leave. Meathead, if I ever hung up on you,
Every time, and this could be yeah. Go ahead, I dare you.
I
Everybody,
can't. It
very
won't
much.
work.
He always hangs up on me just as we're getting ready to say goodbye. He did it just the other day. Thank you very much, Sterling. I always enjoy talking to you. We often just speak on the phone, not via Zoom or like this. But I'm always smiling when I'm talking to you. I always learn something when I talk to you. You're very wise, very worldly, and very generous with your time tonight. Thank you very much. And folks over on YouTube and Facebook, thanks for coming in. Thanks for joining us. Remember that we do preserve these on YouTube and Facebook. Bunch of other interviews and fireside chats recorded, stored there. Come on by AmazingRibs.com. Take the free 30-day trial in the Pitmaster Club. A lot of cool stuff there and more cool stuff coming. And have a happy Halloween, and we'll see